The ID card didn't just fall, it was flicked. A sharp snap of the teller's fingers, a small arc through the air, then the soft, humiliating sound of plastic hitting the marble floor. Aisha Carter bent down to pick it up, the orange fabric of her dress, folding like a quiet flame against the cold tiles. Her hair fell forward, hiding the calm storm in her eyes. Three female employees seated behind the waiting line watched her, one whispering, one smirking, one simply staring like she was observing the inevitable. Behind the counter, the teller didn't blink. Her finger stayed pointed at the ground the exact way the woman in the photo would. "We don't serve your type here." Those words cut through the bank's lobby like a verdict. The room, wide, bright, sterile, suddenly contracted. It became small, tight, a courtroom disguised as customer service. Aisha rose slowly, ID in hand, not brushing off the dust. She didn't need to. Her dignity had never touched the floor. The teller leaned forward, blonde hair sharp against her emerald blazer. "That ID doesn't look legitimate, and clients who belong in this section don't usually dress like that." Her voice had that tone, sugar on top, venom underneath. Aisha didn't answer. She felt no need to. Instead, she looked at the small cluster of staff on the left. Three women in neat suits, knees crossed, backs straight, watching her like she was an inconvenience unfolding in real time. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. Silence has always been prejudice's favorite accomplice. "Ma'am," the teller pressed, "please move aside. You're holding up real clients." Aisha placed her ID gently on the counter. "Run it." Two words, steady, level, almost too calm for the tension squeezing the air. The teller didn't touch it. She shoved it back with a single finger, the same motion one might use to push away something filthy. It slid to the edge again. Aisha exhaled slowly. Not frustration, not defeat, recognition. She'd seen this exact scene at 19, at 26, at 32. Different cities, different lobbies, same script. But today's ending would be different. Before the room could inhale again, Aisha's phone buzzed in her hand. One gentle vibration. One tiny reminder of the power everyone here was pretending she didn't have. She tapped the screen once. A message opened. A single word from her assistant, "Ready." She didn't reply, just locked the phone and placed it beside her ID on the counter. Then she turned, facing the invisible camera of the world beyond this lobby, her voice steady, measured. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here." Now, back to Aisha. A pause. A shift. The storm about to turn. Aisha didn't move when the teller crossed her arms. She simply shifted her weight, the soft click of her heel against the marble floor breaking the silence like a punctuation mark. The orange dress she wore, simple, structured, nothing extravagant, caught the morning light in a way that made her stand out even more. Not flashy, not loud, just undeniable. But in this lobby they denied her anyway. The teller exhaled sharply, a practiced gesture of superiority. "Look," she said, tapping the counter with a manicured nail. "This section is reserved for our premium clients. So unless you have actual proof of who you are, I need you to step aside." Behind her, the three seated employees exchanged glances. The woman in the gray blazer whispered something too soft to hear, but loud enough in intent. The brunette next to her chuckled under her breath. The third didn't laugh, but her stare lingered on Aisha like she was waiting for the next mistake to unfold. Aisha lifted her gaze, letting the room settle into her silence. Most people fill tension with noise, apologies, explanations, defensive rambling. She did the opposite. She let silence expand until everyone else became uncomfortable inside it. The teller blinked, just once but enough to reveal a shift. "Ma'am," she said, voice thinning, "are you even listening?" Aisha rested her ID on the counter again. "I said run it." Still soft, still controlled, a tone that didn't argue but didn't ask. The teller scoffed. "You can't just walk in here dressed, casually, and expect us to." Aisha tilted her head, almost amused. Casually, she brushed an invisible speck from her sleeve. "This is business attire." The brunette in the back muttered, "Not for this bank." A tiny chorus of agreement followed. In that moment, Aisha saw it clearly, not the individuals, but the pattern. A pattern she'd met in airports, boardrooms, hotel lobbies, conferences. A pattern that always began with the same assumption: people like you don't belong here. and each time she faced it, she wondered whether it would sting less. It never did, but the sting never broke her. It sharpened her. She turned slightly, giving the intern near the side desk a chance to speak. The girl looked nervous, wide-eyed, clutching a tablet to her chest. Their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, the intern's lips parted, ready to step in. But then the teller shot her a warning look. Cold, authoritative, the kind that tells a junior employee, know your place. The intern shrank back, shoulders folding in. Aisha watched the micro-defeat with quiet understanding. Not everyone has the power to push back yet, but everyone knows when something is wrong. Ma'am, the teller repeated sharper, now I asked you to move. Aisha tapped her phone once, screen lighting up briefly with a silent confirmation. Then she met the teller's eyes. You confuse clothing with character, she said, and posture with power. The words hung there, not loud, not aggressive, just true, too true for the teller to swat away. Aisha placed both hands on the counter, steady and calm, as the room once again tightened around her. Run my name. The teller didn't run anything. Instead, she slid Aisha's ID back with the same dismissive flick, less dramatic than the first, but sharper in meaning. A gesture that said, I've already decided who you are. I'm not verifying anything until you explain why you're in the priority line, she announced, raising her voice, just enough for the nearby clients to hear. That tone wasn't procedural, it was performance. Behind her, the three seated employees straightened, leaning in as if front row seats had just become available. The brunette folded her arms, settling in. The one in gray smirked like she knew the ending of a story that hadn't begun. The quiet one stared at Aisha's dress, again judgment disguised as observation. Aisha nodded slowly, almost as if she had expected the escalation. Your policy requires verification, she said. So verify. The teller laughed, short-clipped, incredulous. You think this is about policy? She gestured to Aisha's clothes again. Real private client withdrawals don't come from people dressed for, I don't know. Brunch. The woman in gray snorted. Definitely brunch. Aisha didn't react. She merely shifted her purse strap on her shoulder, the movement controlled enough to feel like choreography. Then the teller leaned over the counter, close invasive finger pointed directly at Aisha's ID. Where did you even get this card? It doesn't match your presentation. A murmur rippled through the lobby, not loud, but undeniable. Some clients glanced over, some whispered. People love a spectacle, especially when they think they're not part of it. The teller crossed her arms. We're required to protect this bank from fraud, she added, suddenly sanctimonious. And something about this doesn't feel right. Aisha exhaled through her nose, a small, steady release. Emotion didn't escape, only patience. Then the manager emerged from an office door near the back. A tall man with a stiff tie and a face already tired of responsibility. He approached slowly, adjusting his badge as if preparing for authority. What's the issue, he asked. The teller didn't hesitate. She's insisting on priority service without valid verification, and she refuses to step aside. Aisha lifted a brow. I handed you ID, twice. The manager didn't care for facts. Prejudice rarely does. He gestured vaguely at Aisha's outfit. Well, this area is for high-tier clients. If you have legitimate business here, we need more than... This, Aisha repeated softly. Not a question, a warning. But the teller pushed further. She's being difficult, sir. Maybe call security, they can escort her to the standard line. The woman in gray perked up. Oh, that's a good idea. The brunette laughed under her breath. She asked for it. Aisha finally turned toward them, giving each woman a measured, unblinking moment of her attention. One by one, their postures faltered just slightly, but enough to expose a crack in their confidence. Then Aisha spoke, her voice low but clear. You're mistaking familiarity for authority. The teller frowned. And you're mistaking this bank for a place that owes you anything. That line landed like a slap. The intern at the side desk flinched visibly. The girl's fingers tightened around the tablet, knuckles pale. She looked at Aisha again, this time with something new in her eyes. Recognition. Conflict. A spark waiting for air. Aisha saw it and let the silence swell. The manager took a step closer. Last chance, he said, move aside. Aisha's phone buzzed once in her hand, a quiet vibration, a reminder that the real balance of power in this room was not determined by dress code assumptions or the fragile confidence of people who thought proximity to a counter made them superior. She looked up. I'm not moving, she said. And the lobby felt it, the shift, the crack, the moment before the storm turns. The manager's jaw tightened, the teller's smirk sharpened, and the three employees behind them leaned in as if the scene had reached its favorite part. But the only person who truly moved was the intern, the girl at the side desk, clutching her tablet like a life raft in a rising tide. Aisha noticed her again, her posture small, her breath shallow, her eyes louder than her voice could afford to be. The teller snapped her fingers in the intern's direction. "Don't just stand there, flag security." The girl froze, her throat bobbed, her gaze flicked from the teller to Aisha, then back to the screen in her shaking hands. Aisha's ID was still displayed on the counter. Her name, her account tier, her quiet demand for dignity. The intern swallowed hard and took one step forward. Actually? Her voice cracked, barely audible. The teller rolled her eyes. "What now?" The intern stared at her tablet, reading, rereading, checking the details twice as if seeking courage between the lines. I pulled up the client registry earlier today," she said softly, "and I'm pretty sure I saw her name on the VIP list." The room stuttered, not silent, just staggered, a moment of disbelief trying to stabilize itself. The manager raised a hand dismissively. "You must be mistaken. No, I—" The intern's voice wavered. She tightened her grip on the tablet. "I'm not mistaken." The teller stepped closer, towering just enough to intimidate. "Listen, sweetheart," she hissed, "this is not the time for rookie confusion. You let us handle this." The intern flinched, her courage wavered, but her eyes still held truth, shaking but shining. Aisha met her gaze. One steady look, one silent message, say it or don't. Either way, I see you. The girl inhaled sharply, grounding herself on that unspoken permission. Then she took another step forward, small but seismic. "Her name is on the list," she said louder now, the tremor still there but the fear shrinking. "I saw it this morning. High priority clearance. It's real." The brunette behind the teller scoffed. "Oh, please, she's new. She probably tapped the wrong profile." The woman in gray chimed in, "Exactly. Don't embarrass yourself." But the intern didn't look away, didn't retreat. Not this time. Aisha tilted her head, offering the faintest trace of a nod, respect, not encouragement. The teller snarled, "We're not accepting that. Security is still coming." The girl hesitated, then whispered toward Aisha, too quiet for the staff to fully catch. "I'm sorry, this isn't right." Aisha let a soft breath slip out. Truth never is at first. The lobby shifted again, the first crack widening, the first witness awakening, the first voice daring to stand beside hers, and the storm stepped 1 inch closer. The tension didn't rise, it snapped. The teller reached across the counter, grabbed Aisha's ID between two disdainful fingers, and dropped it again. Not a flick this time. A drop. Deliberate. "Pick it up," she ordered. "Since you insist on pretending you belong here," gasps fluttered through the lobby. Not loud, just the kind of breaths people take when they witness something wrong, but aren't sure if they're allowed to react. Aisha didn't bend this time. She looked at the ID on the marble floor, then at the teller's outstretched hand still pointed down like a commandment chiseled in stone. "Pick it." Up the teller repeated each word, tapping the air like a gavel. The manager stepped forward, adding, "Wait. We're escalating this. You're refusing verification, disrupting service, and ignoring instructions." He signaled toward the front door. "Security will handle the rest." Aisha's fingers curled slightly around her phone. Not fear, not anger, just a quiet centering. Then the brunette in the back added, loud enough for everyone to hear, "She's wasting time. People like her always do." A soft chuckle followed, the kind that bruises deeper than shouting. The intern looked mortified now, glancing between Aisha and the staff. She took a half step forward, lips parting, ready to intervene again. But before she could speak, the manager snapped at her. "Stay out of this. You're 1 week in. Know your place." The words struck harder than intended. They ricocheted through the lobby, landing on Aisha with a familiarity that burned. "Know your place." She'd heard that at 14 when a shop clerk followed her aisle to aisle. At 22 when a loan officer questioned if she even understood interest rates. At 30 when a VC asked who she really worked for. Same tone, same doubt, same dismissal. Aisha inhaled slowly. The memory didn't weaken her, it clarified her. The manager gestured sharply at the ID on the floor. "You're done here. Security will escort you." That was it. The breaking point. Aisha crouched not to obey but to move with intention. She picked up the ID, wiped nothing from it, and rose with a steadiness that made the room lean back an inch. Her voice was calm, too calm for what they expected. "You've crossed a line," the teller scoffed. "Sweetheart, you crossed it the second you walked into this section." Aisha's eyes hardened, not with fury, but with finality. "You think this is about a line you drew," she said softly. "It's about one you shouldn't have." Her phone buzzed again, a single message lighting the screen, phase 1 complete. "Awaiting your signal." The intern stared at the glowing notification, realization dawning, not fear, not confusion, but awe. Aisha raised her gaze to the teller, the manager, the three workers behind them. "This," she said quietly, "is the last moment you'll ever speak to me like that." The lobby stilled, a breath held a balance, shifting a storm crossing its threshold. The lobby didn't know it yet, but the temperature had already changed. Aisha stood there, still centered, almost serene, while the manager barked orders and the teller doubled down on her certainty. But something in the air had shifted, a tension too quiet to name, too heavy to ignore. The manager checked his watch dramatically. "Security will be here any second. Please step away from the counter." Aisha didn't move. In fact, she seemed to settle deeper into her stance. Her posture didn't shout defiance, it whispered inevitability. Her phone vibrated again in her hand. Not loud, just a small hum of power waiting to be used. She tapped once. A single command left her screen silent and surgical. Across town, unseen by anyone in the lobby, servers began shifting. A portfolio identifier unlocked. A dormant protocol activated. The first thread in a very large financial fabric quietly pulled free. But here in this marble-bright lobby, everything looked normal. Normal enough that the teller smirked. "Text whoever you want," she said. "It won't change anything." Aisha slipped the phone into her purse. "It already has." The brunette behind her snorted. "Sure. Okay." And then the first sign, a faint chime from the manager's tablet, a notification banner sliding across the screen too fast for him to catch. Another, then another. He frowned, tapping at the device. "What?" His thumb moved faster. He tapped again, then harder. The teller noticed. "What's wrong?" "It's glitching," he muttered. No one believed that word, not even him. Aisha's expression didn't change. Her stillness became a kind of authority, the kind people feel before they understand it. The intern approached cautiously, tablet pressed to her chest. "Sir, I think the system's flagging something, a detachment sequence." The manager shot her a glare. "Nonsense, you don't even know what you're looking at." But she did. Her eyes widened at the symbols on the screen. I think a major account is unlinking from our institution." The teller scoffed. "No major account uses this branch." Aisha finally spoke, soft, measured, precise. "Some do." The manager looked up at her, then really looked for the first time since she walked in. Not at her dress, not at her posture, at her eyes. A realization flickered across his face, weak, quick, then smothered by denial. "Security is coming," he repeated, as if clinging to a script he no longer trusted. Aisha stepped closer, but not aggressively, just enough that her presence became unavoidable. "You think calling security will restore control," she said quietly, "but control was never yours to lose." Another chime, louder this time. The manager's tablet vibrated violently, alerts stacking over one another like a digital landslide. The intern gasped. "Sir, that account. It's enormous. I've never seen a withdrawal command like this." The brunette stood. "What is happening?" Aisha answered for all of them, her voice steady as stone. Consequences, a beat, a breath, a shift, and the true turn finally began. The alerts didn't stop. They stacked, collided, cascaded, a digital panic. The staff tried and failed to hide. The manager's face drained of color as he scrolled each swipe, revealing something worse. Unlinking, asset migration, Tier 0 clearance override. His voice shrank with every word. "No, no, that's impossible." The teller leaned over the counter, trying to peek. "What's impossible? What's happening?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because the numbers on his screen were too large to comprehend commas and zeros that didn't belong in a local branch's morning routine. Aisha watched him quietly, still, anchored, the single unmoving point in a room that had lost its center of gravity. The intern took another timid step closer. Sir, she whispered, the system tags associated with that account, they're executive level. I don't even think you have clearance to. The manager cut her off with a sharp gesture, panic cracking through his professionalism. That's not possible, he muttered. It's not unless. His eyes lifted slowly, dragging across the space between him and Aisha like the truth weighed 100 pounds. The teller folded her arms. Why are you looking at her like she caused this? Aisha tilted her head not as a question but as a mercy, a silent invitation for him to catch up. The teller scoffed again. Oh, come on. She's a walk-in. She's nobody. Aisha stepped forward, one smooth, deliberate movement that shifted the entire room. Nobody, she repeated softly. The word tasted different coming from her, less insult, more omen. A cluster of clients near the seating area stopped pretending not to watch. Phones lowered, breaths held. The manager swallowed. Ma'am? What exactly are you doing to our system? Aisha placed her ID on the counter one more time, not dropped, not offered, returned to its rightful place. Exactly what your staff refused to do, she said, running my name. The teller rolled her eyes dramatically. And what, pray tell, is your name supposed to mean to us? Aisha looked at her, a calm look, a look that felt like a door unlocking everything. The manager checked his tablet again because denial can only survive when you refuse to look at evidence. But this time he didn't look away. His lips parted, his voice cracked. Oh my God. He staggered back a step. She's not just on the VIP list, she owns the account, the entire portfolio we're losing. He shook his head, stunned. It's all hers. The teller froze mid-breath. The brunette's smile evaporated. The woman in gray lowered her gaze. The intern exhaled like she'd been holding her lungs hostage. Aisha straightened shoulders, steady presence unmistakable. You wanted proof, she said quietly. Now you have it. The manager stared at her, pale and sweating. You're the primary controller of the 1.4 billion transfer. Aisha didn't blink. I am. Silence flooded the lobby, swift, cold, absolute. And then she added the sentence that cracked the room open. You mistook me for someone without power. That was your first mistake. The lobby didn't breathe. Not a shift, not a cough. Not even the rustle of fabric. Just silence, heavy, metallic, unmistakable. The kind that follows a verdict. Then the manager's tablet vibrated violently again. A new alert flashed across the screen in bold red: transfer approved, exiting institution. He choked on his own breath. No, 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 no. That's $1 billion exit. His fingers trembled as he tapped through the details. Assets, holdings, accounts. They're all leaving. The teller stumbled backward, her confidence cracking like cheap porcelain. That's a glitch, right? It has to be a glitch. Her eyes darted from Aisha to the screen, searching for a reality that didn't exist. The brunette stood up so quickly, her chair screeched across the floor. That's impossible. You can't just move that kind of money. Aisha looked at her. I already did. Those 4 words landed like a hammer. Clean, controlled, a soft demolition of everything they thought they understood. The woman in gray covered her mouth with a shaking hand, whispering, Oh my God. We're losing the entire account. Clients nearby started murmuring, is that real? Did she just pull $1 billion? Who is she? And then the sound that truly shattered their confidence, the branch-wide alert tone. Every screen in the lobby flashed simultaneously, casting red reflections across the walls. High-value client departure. Immediate review required. The teller's face drained to a ghostly white. What? What does that even mean? The intern swallowed hard. It means corporate is watching this in real time. A small trembling pause. And they're not going to like what they see. The manager pinched the bridge of his nose, sweat forming in a thin sheen. This is catastrophic, he whispered. Do you understand what you've done? Aisha met his panic with stillness. I didn't do this, she said softly. You did. He looked at her like the floor had tilted. You dismissed me, humiliated me, ignored every policy you claimed to protect. Her voice stayed low, but the truth hit louder than shouting ever could. And now you're learning the cost of that decision. The teller shook her head, stepping forward with desperation overtaking arrogance. Wait, just wait. Maybe we can restore the transaction if you just come with me to the back. And Aisha raised one eyebrow. Now I'm worthy of a back office. The teller froze mid-reach. The intern stepped forward, soft but certain. Ma'am, corporate really is logging this. Every second. I know. Aisha didn't even turn her head. That's why I let it happen exactly this way. The room buckled under the weight of those words. No shouting, no threats, just consequences, quiet, precise, unshakable. Aisha's presence filled the space not with anger but with truth. And truth spoken calmly in a room built on denial is enough to make the whole place collapse. Collapse didn't come with screaming. It came with realization, slow, suffocating, undeniable. The manager stood frozen tablet still buzzing in his trembling hands. Every new alert carved another line of panic across his face. The teller clung to the counter for balance. The employees behind her sat rigid as if movement might draw blame toward them. And Aisha, she was still, composed, a calm center in a room spiraling apart. The manager finally found his voice, thin, cracking at the edges. Ma'am, please. Let's talk about this. There must be some misunderstanding. Aisha didn't blink. There's no misunderstanding, only consequences. He swallowed hard. If you reverse the transfer, I can escalate the situation. We can file a report, disciplinary action, better training. Aisha cut him off with a single look. Not sharp, not cruel, just final. Training doesn't fix character, she said. And apologies don't restore respect that was never offered. The teller stepped forward, desperate now. Her voice shook. Maybe we just didn't realize who you were. Aisha turned toward her, slowly, deliberately. And that, she said quietly, is exactly the problem. The teller flinched. Behind them, the branch's main screen flickered, pushing a new message across every monitor in bold corporate blue: urgent authorization, breach review, senior audit team notified. The brunette gasped. The audit team. For us. The woman in gray pressed a fist against her chest. We're done. They're going to tear this place apart. The manager spun toward the intern, panic redirecting into the easiest target. You triggered this. I told you to stay quiet. The girl stepped back, startled, but Aisha's voice caught her before the shame did. She didn't trigger anything Aisha said. You did the moment you chose bias over procedure. The lobby fell silent around that truth. The intern's eyes shimmered with a mix of fear and gratitude. She clutched her tablet tighter, grounding herself in the only person in this room who had treated her like she mattered. The manager ran a shaky hand down his face. What do you want from us? He pleaded. Aisha's answer was almost gentle, almost. Nothing. What I wanted was respect. And the moment you denied that, you denied this bank the privilege of my business. He stared at her, lost. Aisha continued, voice steady, measured, unhurried. You thought I walked in alone. You thought I walked in powerless. You thought the way I dressed dictated the way you could treat me. She leaned in just slightly close enough that her calm became unmistakably dominant. Now you know better. He blinked rapidly, breath short. We can fix this, he insisted. We just need time. Aisha stepped back, granting him a fraction of space he didn't deserve. Time, she said, is a luxury you no longer have. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it once. Phase 2 complete, transfer irreversible. Aisha slipped the phone away. The aftermath has already begun, she said quietly. But the accountability, that starts now. And every screen in the lobby blinked again, this time with a message none of them were prepared for. The screens flickered once, twice, then unified into a single banner across the lobby: priority client incident, executive oversight initiated. A ripple of horror moved through the staff. The brunette stood rigid, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. The woman in gray whispered, This is above corporate. This is central. And the teller, once smug, once certain, looked suddenly very small behind the counter. The manager's voice cracked. No. They only initiate oversight when a top-tier client files a direct grievance. The intern glanced at Aisha, then back at the flashing screens. She didn't file anything, she whispered. Her eyes widened with dawning realization. Which means someone above corporate must have triggered it. Aisha didn't confirm. She didn't need to. The manager stepped toward her, hands raised in a clumsy mix of surrender and pleading. Please, he begged, whoever you contacted, whoever you notified, can you just tell them to stop the review? We can resolve this internally. We will fix everything. Aisha regarded him with a calm that cut deeper than anger. You're not being reviewed because of me, she said quietly. You're being reviewed because of what you chose to do. He shook his head, unable to reconcile that truth with the reality collapsing around him. It was just a misunderstanding. Numba Aisha's voice was soft but immovable. It was a judgment. The teller stepped forward, voice trembling. We were just trying to protect the bank. Aisha met her gaze, unwavering. You protect a bank by following protocol, not by profiling your clients. The teller's breath hitched. Her denial had nowhere left to hide. A cluster of clients gathered behind Aisha, now silent witnesses who had watched the rise, the fall, and the unraveling. Some held phones, some held anger, all held truth. Then the manager's tablet vibrated again, not a warning, this time a verdict. He read the message aloud, voice hollow. Immediate suspension, pending executive interview, branch leadership under review. Staff conduct flagged. The brunette gasped. They're suspending the entire leadership team. The teller's eyes filled with panic. This can't be happening. This can't. Aisha stepped closer, not threatening, but final. You thought I was powerless because of how I looked, she said. You thought you controlled the narrative because you controlled the counter. Her gaze swept across all of them. But real power doesn't need a counter. Real power doesn't raise its voice. Real power reveals itself. The intern inhaled sharply because she understood. For the first time, she truly understood. The manager's knees nearly gave out. Please, he whispered, tell us what you want us to do. Aisha didn't hesitate. Stand still, she said, and watch what accountability looks like. And as if on cue, the glass doors at the entrance slid open. 3 men and 1 woman in navy suits stepped inside, badges in hand, expressions sharp, purpose unmistakable. Executive oversight had arrived. The 4 executives crossed the lobby with the precision of a verdict. No rush, no hesitation, just purpose, clean and cold. Their badges caught the overhead lights, casting sharp reflections across the marble floor. The manager stiffened like someone had hooked a wire through his spine. The teller stumbled backward, hitting the counter with a soft thud. The 2 women behind her froze mid-breath, as if movement might trigger something worse. The lead executive, a woman with steel-gray eyes and an expression carved from discipline, stopped at the center of the lobby. Who is branch manager, she asked. The manager raised his trembling hand. I am. She didn't look impressed. She didn't even look at him fully. Step forward. He obeyed. Not out of respect, out of survival instinct. The executive glanced at her tablet. Multiple policy breaches. Violation of client verification protocol. Unjustified escalation. And she lifted her eyes, pinning him with something colder than authority, evidence of discriminatory conduct. The teller's breath caught. The brunette whispered, "Oh God." The woman in gray lowered her head as if bracing for impact. The manager tried to speak. There must be a mistake. There is the executive cut in. The mistake was yours. She turned her attention to the teller. You, step forward. The teller's legs shook as she moved. Her voice came out thin. I didn't mean... You dropped a client's ID on the floor, the executive said flatly, twice. Her gaze narrowed. And you did so while the client held Tier 0 authorization. A silence fell so heavy it felt like gravity thickened. Tier 0, the teller repeated, barely audible. Her voice broke. No, that's not possible. The executive didn't blink. It is, and you treated her as if she was a trespasser. The brunette and gray-suited woman swayed in place, suddenly aware of the scale of what they'd provoked. Then the executive turned toward Aisha, and the entire lobby felt the shift. Aisha Carter, she said with a nod of acknowledgement, not deference, not fear, respect. The kind reserved for someone whose name moves numbers, whose silence shifts institutions. Aisha inclined her head in return. The manager stared at her, jaw slack. You know her? The executive didn't bother answering him. She addressed Aisha directly. I can confirm Phase 2 is complete, she said quietly. The review is active. Their suspension is immediate. A brief pause. And irreversible pending your final authorization. The teller gasped. The manager's knees buckled. The brunette sank back into her chair. The woman in gray whispered a prayer to no one. Aisha took one step forward, not for drama, but clarity. They weren't punished for who they are, she said softly. They're being held accountable for what they chose to do. The executive nodded. We await your final instruction. The entire lobby turned to Aisha. Everyone held their breath, because the next sentence she spoke would decide the fate of an entire branch. All eyes locked on Aisha, terrified eyes, hopeful eyes, ashamed eyes, every gaze in the lobby orbiting the same quiet center of gravity. The executive oversight team stood poised, tablets ready, fingers hovering above action buttons that could end careers with a single tap. The manager trembled. The teller's mascara smudged at the corners. The brunette sat frozen, lips parted but empty of excuses. The woman in gray clutched her hands together, praying for a miracle that would not come. Aisha didn't rush. Power never does. She let the silence stretch, not to punish but to let truth sink into the bones of the room. Then she spoke. Accountability, she said calmly, is not revenge. Her eyes swept across each staff member one by one. It's understanding that every choice has weight, and today you felt the weight of yours. The manager stepped forward, voice cracking. Please, anything, just give us one more chance. Aisha lifted a hand and he fell silent instantly. Your chance, she said softly, was the moment I handed you my ID the first time. A pause, sharp, clean. And the moment you let it hit the floor, twice. You let your judgment hit it with it. The teller broke. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I truly am. Aisha didn't look cruel, she looked honest. Apologies heal accidents, she said, not patterns. The executive in the steel-gray eyes stepped closer. Ms. Carter, we're prepared to finalize. Aisha nodded once. Proceed. 4 taps, 4 chimes, 4 futures sealed. A message flashed across every screen in the branch. Suspension confirmed. Branch leadership removed pending termination. Staff audit active. The room exhaled in a fractured chorus. Shock, grief, disbelief, acceptance. The intern, small but braver now, took a hesitant step toward Aisha. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Thank you. For standing up. For saying what I couldn't. Aisha turned to her warmth, softening the steel in her eyes. You saw the truth, she said. That's the beginning of courage. The girl's eyes shimmered, grateful, steadier. Aisha picked up her ID from the counter one final time. This time, no one dared look away. She slipped it into her purse with the calm of someone who had just restored order, not created chaos. As she moved toward the doors, the lobby parted for her, not out of fear but respect. At the threshold, she paused and looked back, not at the ones who wronged her, but at everyone watching. Her final words were simple, quiet, unforgettable. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. Then she stepped into the morning light, leaving behind a branch, forever changed not by anger, not by force, but by dignity, sharpened into truth. And the world outside, like the lobby she'd just reshaped, felt different now. Cleaner, straighter, fairer. Because she walked out of that bank exactly as she walked in. A woman who never needed permission to belong.